going to talk from a little high right now, and the only thing that means is that I'm not feeling shitty. That's what it means. But it isn't neutral, it's more of a I am aware and thankful that I'm not feeling shitty. The thing is, it's all the small things that will lead to a change, and you just have to do it and keep doing it until it feels right. And it's going to feel wrong for the longest time. But then one day, at one point, you just realize, oh, it worked, something has worked. So all of last year, and the year before actually, so from June all the way to New Year's, and then all of last year, I would be so anxious. I try so many approaches, like top to bottom, bottom to top. I continue with my top to bottom, although it didn't have much effect at all. And then I'd continue and learn new bottom to top approaches. And it would just give me a new experience, but it wouldn't do anything with my anxiety there and then, and the short term, that month or that week or whatever. And it's frustrating because you feel like you're trying everything, and then I realized if I just keep doing whatever makes me feel like this feels right, or this could potentially feel right. And then the full acceptance thing, where if I feel anxious, I don't try to change it, but I just if I am feeling anxious and hyperventilating, I'll try and just calm down the hyperventilation. And for all of last year, I wouldn't do shit. I'd shake and tremble, I'd be nauseous and dizzy and generally feeling extremely unwell. And I'd do all the things. I'd go on walks, I'd listen to affirmations, I'd use ice pack and take skills, and I'd do all that. But it didn't do anything there and then. It didn't do anything short term. And then months later, I realized actually something must have worked, because it did have some sort of effect. I think at this point it's more of a broken leg. And I just kept walking on it and having to run on it and jumped on it and just continuously done that. It doesn't get the space it needs to heal at all. And so that's what I've been doing. Every time I felt anxious, I've been like, why am I anxious? And I stood up and started walking on the broken leg and been like, I shouldn't have this broken leg right now. There's no reason for me to have a broken leg right now. And I just kept walking on it. It's still broken and it just got more and more painful. And what I've been doing, kind of sitting down and moved my leg up, basically. So sat down on my couch, put a pillow under the foot. It's still broken. It's still painful. I'm still trying to move it and touching it a bit because I can't leave it alone. But it doesn't heal right there and then, and I will forget that that's what I need to do. And I'll start walking on it again. Have a panic attack or an anxiety attack, or I'll go and show up to a marathon because it's just happened to be there, and I kind of just don't want to have a broken leg. So what these things I've been doing, especially with the bottom-up approach, is putting my leg up, is putting ice on it, is getting it cast on. And over time, I realise my foot is not as swollen, it has healed, and I can walk on it again. And that's a completely different feeling than not doing anything and just letting it pass, whereas it wouldn't really. It's just it isn't in extreme pain anymore. But at that point it's going to be a chronic problem because you never let it heal up properly. And that's what I feel. I started these things in July. I was walking and running and jumping on my foot all the way until there. And at that point it snapped completely and I couldn't even stand up and I couldn't even lay down without being in immense pain, metaphorically speaking. And then I started putting my foot up. I started taking the bus, I started using crutches and seeing that I can move, I just need crutches. And it took July, August, September, October, and November. I think maybe around the end of November I started seeing the effects, I started seeing something different. And December was a little bit of the same. And then now I can tell there's a difference. I can't put my finger on it, but there's a difference. And it goes in waves, of course, but it does help a lot. Be very disciplined and try very hard, but you don't have to. You should be careful so you don't burn out. I think you can literally burn out on trying to recover too hard because you're stressing your system so much by having to do things in a certain way And like now you did meditate and you did go to sleep early, why do you still feel unwell? That's what I did last year. I also internalized anxiety a lot when I got sick, and I was very introspective. So instead of doing and trusting and just emotionally healing, I'd be very introspective and needed to reason and everything and find evidence and figure out why this happens from this. And although it's a great skill, it isn't always what you need. I found a podcast yesterday where he talked about basically what happened to me last year, although it was more like a agitated anxiety attack episode rather than deep depression. But it was very agitated, the body was very activated, it was very physiosomatic or physiological, like there's no positive thinking and positive words and all that had absolutely zero effect. Then you had to go to the somatic thing or the emotional. Just gonna let you listen.
Sedatives to help me sleep. The next morning, the nurse came up to me and said, "Hey, wanted to let you know that I've heard of your book, Healing from Depression. I've glanced at it, and you talk about cognitive behavioral therapy. This is very effective in controlling your moods and your feelings. So why don't you try it right now? See if you can calm yourself down." I said, "Well, I did it before I came in, but it didn't work. That's why I'm here, because I can't control my nervous system. It's really a point where I can't use my thinking or my will. There's something really basically going on that's wrong." She said, "Look, I want you to try this out. We don't want to put you in a padded room." I said, "A Klonopin would be preferred." What the nurse didn't understand is that this anxiety was not caused by my so-called stinking thinking. What was going on is that my amygdala was dysregulated, and the amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure in the midbrain known for its role in processing fear. And when the amygdala is triggered, you just can't talk yourself out of a physiological anxiety because you move into this fear response and then you're in a fight or flight response. As a result, I was a prisoner of my own biology. In this case of extreme fear, the top-down approach of changing your thinking to change your feelings doesn't work. What is needed instead is what I call a bottom-up process.
People like to simplify attitude and mindset as if it's like your fault you feel bad. Sometimes it isn't though when you struggle with anxiety disorders and depression and mood disorders. There is something physiological happening. I'm not talking about chemical imbalance. I'm talking about things in different parts of the brain that you have simply no control over. You can tickle a panic attack, but you can't really think your way into a panic disorder intellectually. You definitely can emotionally. Like if you always connect everything to being scared or feeling fear, and you really tickle that whole idea, you might end up with a panic disorder. But you can't really can't sit down now and be like, I'm going to think myself into a deep depression here and now. It takes time. And the mindset and the attitude also takes time. If you are very locked into a thinking pattern, affirmations maybe won't help right away, but the thing is, consistency is the best thing. Just being consistent every week, every day, you are going to see that something changes in either direction, and then you can make a choice whether to keep it up or not. But you have to stay with it for long enough that it settles into a habit, into a routine, so that if you wake up at 4 a.m, you've taught yourself to not freak out. You just say, oh, okay, an early morning then. It takes practice. Yes. And positive thinking and all that is great, but it takes practice. And if you do struggle with anxiety and mood disorders, you need to deal with them somatically. That's why I'm very into an holistic approach.